Welcome to the Susan LoPresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul podcast, the go-to space for midlife and mature women who are ready to reclaim their health, boost their energy, and live long, vibrant, and purposeful lives. Each week, we dive deep into natural wellness, holistic healing, anti-aging strategies, and healthy lifestyle habits to help you feel your best physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Whether you're navigating menopause, working through chronic conditions, or simply wanting to age gracefully and intentionally, this show is your sanctuary for science-backed insights, powerful stories, and soul-nourishing inspiration. If you're a woman over 40, 50, or older looking to thrive in the next chapter of your life, you're in the right place. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome a guest who brings clarity, credibility, and much needed transparency to the beauty and personal care industry. My guest is Brian Ecclesfield, and he is a 17-year veteran in designing in vivo clinical studies that help global brands strengthen and differentiate their skincare and cosmetic products ethically and honestly. In 2018, Brian founded Validated Claims Support, a company created as a transparent, accountable alternative to the traditional CRO model. His work is redefining how skincare testing is done and how claims are communicated to consumers. Brian also serves as an expert witness in consumer protection cases where he advocates for integrity in product claims and clearer, more truthful messaging between brands and the people who use their products. Over the years, he's collaborated with household names like Johnson & Johnson, Estee Lauder, L'Oreal, and Unilever, reviewed thousands of clinical reports, built inclusive testing panels, and helped launch dozens of products through major retailers such as QVC and HSN. His expertise has been featured on ABC News, Beauty Matter, Global Cosmetic Industry Magazine, and Happy Magazine, and he's been a sought-after voice on podcasts like Skincare Anarchy, where he explored evolving regulations and the future of skincare. Today, Brian is joining us to unpack what skincare claims really mean, how consumers can better understand product testing, and what true innovation and accountability should look like in the beauty industry. This is an important conversation for anyone who cares about what they're putting on their skin and the trust they place in the brands that they choose. So, without further ado, Brian, welcome to my podcast. Thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to have this conversation with you. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Brian, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm excited for this conversation.
Thanks a lot, Susan. It's really nice to be here and to talk with you.
Great, you're welcome. Brian, my first question is, you spent over 17 years designing in vivo clinical studies. First of all, what exactly is in vivo clinical studies? What does that mean?
In vivo references the human element of clinical testing. So figure whenever there's people, skin, and hair involved, and you want to see changes over time, that would be the type of clinical work that I've been involved with. So think about cosmetics, skincare, some of the red light or blue light therapy that you might see, shampoos, conditioners. Whenever brands are looking to make a claim or prove that their product works or does something impactful, I would help build a study to show whether or not it's actually doing what they think that it might be.
Interesting. Okay, thank you for that. I just wanted to clarify that first. What drew you into this field of work?
That's a great question. I was originally a finance undergraduate, and I found my way into cosmetics through a really circuitous route since I couldn't get a job to save my life in that field in 2009 after the subprime mortgage collapse.
Yeah.
I moved back in with my parents, and I was studying to go to law school. And I ended up meeting a gentleman who worked for a clinical laboratory. And basically, instead of going back to law school, I gave it a shot on the clinical side and fell in love with the industry.
Wow. So, what did you notice early on about how skincare and cosmetic products were being tested? And where did you feel that the system was falling short?
Some of the things that I saw during my sort of early formative years were, regardless of the fact that I don't, just for reference, I don't have a scientific background. I was a finance major, like I
Right.
mentioned, but numbers and statistics are something that I'm very comfortable with and always have been. And I find that when things are too good to be true, or when things appear to be too good to be true, there's a very likely case that maybe they are, or there's a mistake. And when the pattern continues and things are often working 100% of the time, that is something that should be questioned. And when you question things and your bosses tell you to stay out of that or don't look under the curtain like the Wizard of Oz, it's something you should take to heart. And in my opinion, you should always keep asking questions because it'll help you learn about whatever field that you may be more interested in, and it'll make you better at whatever your job may be. So when people tell you not to ask questions, I find that it's likely they're hiding something.
Yes. So, is that when you founded Validated Claim Support, when you noticed that people were trying to hide things or put them under the rug, so to speak?
It took me a while really to get a handle on the scope and the level of, let's say, in many cases, fraud, which was proven over time. People in this industry have gone to jail for misleading results and doing testing, which it wasn't fair to the consumer or to their clients. They were extrapolating data and making products seem like they were safer or more effective than they actually were when they were tested in the lab. So, over time, I decided that after seeing this at multiple different facilities, I didn't want to waste another year of my life just figuring out whether or not I saw eye to eye with management and we had the same moral compass at another laboratory. And I decided to build a team and put together the basis for validated claim support back in 2018.
So when consumers see phrases like clinically proven, dermatologist tested, or backed by science, what do those terms actually mean and what don't they mean?
The ones that you just mentioned are a great sort of hodgepodge of claims. So I think it's a really good place to start. So clinically tested really means that at some point, an in vivo test of any kind has occurred on the product. It doesn't mean the product was effective in any way. It just means it was tested. So technically, you could have tested a product, it could have failed, and you can still say that it was clinically tested.
Ah,
When you say something like dermatologist tested, that's giving a little bit more credence to the fact that a medical professional was actually involved with some of the clinical data collection. And then you mentioned like beauty backed by science, which right now is one of those phrases or claims which I absolutely despise because to me that doesn't actually mean anything. All beauty is backed by science. Somewhere along the way, a chemist came up with a formula in a lab. There's a science behind every single product on the shelf. So saying science-backed beauty doesn't mean anything. What I think brands should do is describe what is the particular element of your product that makes it different. Is it more effective at protecting the skin's barrier or implementing hydration in the short term or the long term or reducing fine lines and wrinkles? So those are the types of places where you can really differentiate your product. And I would call that one a puffery type claim for sure.
so, from your experience, you're reviewing thousands of clinical reports, I'm sure. What are some of the most common ways that claims can be misleading without technically being false?
Something that a lot of brands do is they misconstrue the line between qualitative data or sensory feedback and then measured biological changes or objective data. So 97% of women agreeing that a product makes their skin feel more supple is a lighter claim that comes from questionnaires. If you were to say 97% improvement in firmness or elasticity, that becomes a harder objective claim that requires some type of instrumentation or secondary data collection directly from the skin. So it's
Mhm.
not just about your own self-perception and feedback. So misconstruing those individual components is something that I think happens all the time. It's not always done in a nefarious way either. It's marketing pushing a little bit too hard and maybe regulatory not stepping in quite enough. So it's always a balancing act between marketing, formulation, and R&D, and then the regulatory team.
I know that there's a lot of buzzwords in the skincare marketing. So, what should stand out as a red flag for consumers?
I think if a brand is really pushing basic puffery, like things that don't have any basis or founding, again, go back to science-backed beauty. If somebody's talking about science-backed beauty, but they're not actually explaining and being transparent about what makes their product different scientifically, that can definitely be a problem. Many of the things that are out there, which are super common that aren't necessarily problematic, but that I'm sure you've seen, there's a lot of products that say things like microbiome friendly. That's one that's very common. And that one can be fairly misleading because if you have a product that's designed to treat something like acne or dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis, that product, I don't, if it's going to impact the natural tenants living on your skin, whether it's a yeast or a bacteria, if it's going to alter that sort of biochemistry, then it's not necessarily microbiome friendly because it's targeting particular genus or species and hopefully wiping out some of their population so that they don't cause you stress, headaches, and problems with your skin. But
Mhm.
that's a claim that I think can be misleading because microbiome friendly is a very generic term. Sometimes you don't want some of the microbiomes that live on your skin to be so successful.
What about the term wild crafted? I've seen that on skincare labels. What exactly does that mean?
That one would be more of a generic marketing term for sure. So you start to get into more of a semi-supply chain claim. So you're in the
Ah,
space where people are talking about something that's all natural or sourced from raw ingredients. So what it really means, I think, is up to the marketing team that probably first said it. I don't think that there's really a true basis for it at the moment, or there's not necessarily like a certification or seal that anybody would be providing for a product like that.
mm-hmm. I see. Okay, that clarifies that. As an expert witness in consumer protection cases, what are some of the patterns that you see when brands get into trouble over their claims?
A lot of the work I've done in the expert witness side is related to sunscreen.
Ah,
And what's happened is you have a lot of brands and products on the shelves which are inflated in terms of their SPF values. Much of that can be traced back to nefarious activity at a number of different testing laboratories. The biggest one back in 2017, that's where I had started in the industry. It's called AMA Laboratories. That group no longer exists, but what was happening is they were inflating the SPF values that they were giving to their clients, and that puts consumers at great risk because people think they're wearing an SPF 50, and if it doesn't have that type of protection and you're going out in the sun all day, you're at risk for short-term sunburn, but also the DNA damage and risk of skin cancer in the long term. So those SPF claims are something that can be very damaging, like worldwide. And one of the biggest problems is that to date, the FDA here in the US never really made a big sort of remark or public disclosure that they were shutting down a laboratory and people went to jail. So a lot of products, I believe, are still on shelves that like were tested with previous formulations from that group. That's one of the things I think we're still seeing is legacy products that were tested by bad influencers in the industry.
And consumers are not aware of any of this.
Really, no. And these are things so anybody can jump out there if you were to go on Google and look up AMA Laboratories fraud. You'll find a $48 million fraud suit. People went to jail for 5 years for misleading brands and consumers. It's not something that's really widely available or publicized at the consumer level. In the industry now, I think people have started to learn a lot about it, and different retailers and some international regulatory groups will call for retesting if they see reports that are from these types of institutions. But without that, the consumer usually doesn't know the name of the testing lab behind the scenes.
So, what role does transparency play in rebuilding trust in the beauty and personal care industry?
I think right now, trust has been broken and violated in many ways. There's a huge controversy in Australia with sunscreens at the moment, and there's another testing laboratory in question. So, one of the best things that brands and laboratories can do is open up their report data and publish it. So, many brands are now putting their test materials directly online so consumers and the industry can look and compare against other products. Transparency is the best thing you can do right now when trust has been shaken. That's much better than a puffery claim like science-backed beauty.
Right.
Show the consumer what the science is and explain to them what it means and why your product is safer or better.
Yeah. Consumer beware. We need to know these things. And with skincare, but you don't know exactly what's going into these products that you're putting on your skin. And basically, your skin takes it in, and it could actually be aging you than helping you to look younger and all the claims that it gives you. So, how does skin change in midlife and beyond, right? And why does that matter when products are being tested and marketed?
Depending on where you live in the world and your sort of cultural sensitivity to sun and tanning and vacation and what that means, realistically, the more exposure continuously to UV light and the sun that you have in your life, the more your skin will both visually and physically age. So you have your actual age, like the number of years since you were born. That's the obvious one. And then you have your skin age, which could be older or younger, depending on what your environmental factors look like. There's other elements too, but really smoking would be a potential big one. But
Yeah.
the sun is like the world's biggest, let's say, leveler as it comes out for long-term damage. So your skin's laxity and your ability to produce collagen will go down. Your skin will become less firm and less supple over time. And that UV damage will also over time give you different either hyper or hypopigmented spots. So unevenness of skin tone. You'll get redder over time as some of your blood vessels come more to the surface. All of those things, and obviously fine lines and wrinkles and pore size becomes a consideration, but all those things lead to this concept of visual aging. And the number one thing that everyone can do to prevent visual aging is to wear sunscreen and wear it most days. If you're going to be outside for more than just running to and from your car, you should be putting on some type of daily SPF.
Yes. But now there's another school of thought with the sun. And a lot of experts say that you need to get out into the early morning sun to get natural vitamin D absorbed into your body, and also to have the sunlight go into your eyes, not exactly looking directly into the sun, but it helps to set the circadian rhythm. So where's the balance? I know they say it should be early morning sun, like 7 a.m., 8 a.m., not at 11 or 12 in the afternoon. And how much time should someone spend in the sun without sunscreen to reap the benefits of what the sun does offer?
I think it's a really good point that people do need vitamin D, especially if you're like in one of the latitudes like I am here in New York, where
I
it's
am
bitter
too.
cold. So we're in the middle of a really cold winter. Nobody wants to go outside because it's so dry and awful. But getting your natural vitamin D is something that's really important. Wearing a light sunscreen is not going to actually stop your body from running its response to UV light and
Wow.
producing vitamin D. It's all about sort of consistency. And in the winter, it's the most difficult for us to get our natural vitamin D. So being outside is a good thing. The morning or the afternoon is really just like an index factor. So you could spend technically more time unprotected at 7 a.m. than you could at noon. But regardless, you really don't necessarily want to be outside unprotected if you don't have to be, because UV it's like a cumulative impact on your body. It's not, oh, 5 minutes this day and then I won't go out into the sun, or 20 minutes this day and then next week I'll take a break. Every minute that you're out there will age your body. And the more you do it over time consistently, 5 minutes a day does add up over a couple of years. So I think in terms of what the right message for consumers is, you definitely want to be outside, but you want to do it in a protected fashion. And in the winter, it's so hard to get vitamin D. So anything you can do to be outside, but don't forget to wear protection in the winter, especially if you're going skiing or something, because you get some of the reflection as well.
Yes.
But yeah, it's definitely a balancing act, because you miss out on a lot of really good sort of natural positive vibe boosters between your circadian rhythm and the vitamin D if you're not getting enough sunlight.
So as far as a sun protection, so I've been going outside in the morning, walking around 7 o'clock, and I'm not wearing sunscreen because I'm thinking I want to get the benefits of vitamin D. Now, if I was to wear a sunscreen, what SPF level would work for me where I'm getting sun protection, but yet I could be receiving vitamin D?
Think about the number on SPF as it applies to different skin types. So everybody's skin is unique, but SPF 15 does mean that for you and for me, because it's tested on a multitude of different people and skins, it would take 15 times longer for you to show a minimum redness or sunburn 16 to 24 hours after your exposure. So for you, maybe it ends up being like 20 minutes in the middle of a summer's day that you could be outside. And SPF 15 will give you 15 times that 20 minutes. So if you're heading outside in the morning for, let's say, 20, 30, 40 minutes in the earlier UV index part of the day, I
Yeah.
think you would do yourself a great service with an SPF 15. If you were going to go out to the beach or you're going to be working in the garden for the day, you'd want to step it up because your exposure time is going to be higher. But the most important thing is that what you're wearing is comfortable. So a lot of people stock up on SPF 50 plus, and it can be thick and overly heavy and creamy. So people won't put it on every time they go outside because it doesn't really fit with what they want on their face.
Yeah.
You just need something that you are comfortable with. And I think daily wear SPF 15 is going to get most people by.
Okay, that's great to know. Thank you for that. Do you think that mature women are underserved or misunderstood by the skincare industry? And if so, how?
I do think so. I think a lot of the research that gets done on fine lines and wrinkles and skin laxity, it's still getting catered to a younger audience, which is more like the modern target market for anti-aging is 35 to 55. It's a younger crowd for when you start talking about things like anti-aging. I do think that now we're starting to see products that are designed for people, not just suitable for different ages, but targeted towards people of different ages. But we're really not there yet. So I hope to see that consideration become more of a frontline factor. With with skincare in general, it is so important to always remember that there's so many different types of skin and ways that skin interacts with products. Not every product is good for everybody, and that doesn't mean that the product is discriminatory. In fact, being targeted is great because of how many different skin types we have. So variation and different products are a healthy thing for the industry as a whole to push.
Yeah. But how can consumers tell the difference between like meaningful innovation and clever marketing? Like, how do you know?
Look for brands that actually publish some of their data. Look for good, real before and after photos too that show real people, not models, people that maybe have the same types of conditions that you have. Look for consistency in the photos because that tells a good story. But most importantly, you want a brand that shows you how they're different as opposed to just telling you with a bunch of sparkly words.
Yeah. That's great advice. Are there any promising trends in skincare testing or regulation that give you hope for the future?
I do think that since 2020 and COVID, the direct
Yeah.
to consumer market's come a long way, and smaller brands that are starting up and indie brands have much more of a focus on proving their efficacy and claim support. And things are pushing on the FDA side from regulatory with MOCRA and cosmetic safety as well. So there is a demand for a higher level of product. So we are seeing some of this puffery, as we talked about, getting almost ruled out because it just doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah. So if someone could only remember three things when choosing a skincare product, what would you want those to be?
Remember that everybody's skin is different and that the population that a product is tested on isn't necessarily the same as the target market that it's going to be
Uh,
sold to. So that one, again, that one you hopefully have to be picking a brand that's going to open the hood of the car a little bit, show you inside. Maybe they release some of their testing data or they explain that they do unbiased third party clinical research. Those are good, positive trends. On top of that, pick something that's comfortable for you as a daily wear SPF. It's got to match up with your skin type. So if you like something that's a little bit tinted, that's totally fine. If you like something that's just light and silky and easy to wear, that's a big plus. And then remember that the biggest two things that you can do for your skin in the long term are to make sure that you moisturize, but not over moisturize. Don't go doing it every hour. Make sure you follow the use instructions and always double down on that daily wear sunscreen so you don't end up with early UV damage and secondary exposure.
how do you see regulations and consumer expectations evolving over the next few years?
We have a new sunscreen ingredient for the first time in over 20 years right now. So
Oh,
that's going to catapult SPF development. I would like to see some stability from FDA. Obviously, like when you have a big election year, things change and people lose their jobs. So we need to have some people in power who are brought up from the industry and get to stay at their posts for a long time. I'd like to see this MOCRA initiative segue into product performance and not just product safety to standardize the claims that brands can make and call on them to be honest and be transparent. I do think that the push we're seeing now is more from retail. So you have groups like HSN and QVC or Sephora and Ulta, even Target and Walmart, like on the sort of more mass market side, coming
yeah.
out with their own standards and actually fighting back when brands make misleading claims. You see it all the time with Amazon right now as well.
Oh, that's great to know. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I think more and more people are becoming consumer aware, women, and because a lot of the ingredients that are put into skincare at times are actually doing a lot of damage to your body, and you don't realize that because they're claiming that you're going to look younger, maybe on the outside short term, but long term, it could be actually hurting your health. If there's one message that you hope listeners would take away from today's conversation, what would it be?
As the singer Baz Luhrmann said back, I believe, in the early 2000s, trust me on the sunscreen.
Okay, so you're a big believer in sunscreen. And now, after
Yes.
listening to you speak about that, I am going to wear SPF 15. I'm very, very fair. So
Mhm.
I burn really quickly and I'm always avoiding the sun, but I do want to reap the benefits of natural vitamin D.
Mhm.
So I will wear SPF. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. That's great to hear.
Yes, Brian, thank you so much. Any final thoughts you'd like to leave my listeners with before we go?
If anybody has an interest in learning more about clinical testing or some of the companies which I mentioned, there was like the big fraud situation. Jump out on Google. Seriously, look into the Australian sunscreen scandal that's ongoing. I think some of that is going to be sending its way here to the US. And as consumers, you end up with a lot of power here. So call for better transparency from your brands and trust the brands that actually go out of their way to show you under the hood and what type of science it is that's backing their science-backed beauty.
Great advice. Thank you, Brian. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. As we wrap up today's conversation, I hope this episode has given you a deeper understanding of what really goes on behind skincare claims, and more importantly, how to become a more informed, confident consumer. Brian brings such a refreshing level of integrity, transparency, and real world experience to an industry that often feels confusing or overwhelming. His work is a powerful reminder that science, ethics, and consumer trust should go hand in hand, and that we all deserve honest information about what we're putting on our skin. If today's conversation made you pause, question, or look differently at the products that you use, that's a good thing. Awareness is empowering, especially as we age and become more intentional about our health, our skin, and the choices we make for our bodies. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who cares about clean beauty, truthful marketing, and aging well, naturally and consciously. Thank you for spending this time with me. And as always, remember healing, rejuvenation, and radiant health begin with knowledge, intention, and self trust. I'll see you next time.